everybody, welcome back to Chiquel's YouTube channel. My name is Amanda and I'm here today to talk to you guys about how to measure your head for a wig. And not only that, I'm going to also talk about just general wig sizing stuff because I know how tricky it is to try and find a wig that's going to fit you. It's one of the hardest things. I say that and color. Those two things are like, ugh, it's so hard to find something that's gonna work for you. So we're gonna talk about this today. But before I dive in, I'm just gonna remind you to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you guys want to learn even more about alternative hair. And also, just as a reminder, if you haven't been watching my other videos lately, then this is just to let you know that one of your comments might end up resulting in a gift card for you. So I'm going to be randomly commenting on people's comments out of the blue, and you might be the lucky winner of a gift card to Chiquel. So just so you know, your comment might mean you get a lucky little surprise from me. Okay, before I begin, I will let you know that I'm wearing the wig Ready For It by Gabor in the color Shaded Ice Pumpkin Spice, and I have completely straightened it. She also needs a little bit of a wash. I'm looking at her right now in the screen and I'm like, ooh, I might just take her off. She's getting a little bit clumpy. Heat defying fibers tend to get a little clumpy. She's getting clumpy. So I'm gonna go wash her soon, I think. So she's gonna come off, and I'm gonna just dive into showing you guys how we're gonna measure ourselves for a wig. Okay, the most important thing you'll need is a soft measuring tape, something like this. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. I'm assuming most of you have at least a measuring tape, like the hard ones. You know what I mean? the measuring tape. And if you have one of those, then really all you need is like a soft piece of material that can go around your head. And you can use that to measure up to your measuring tape. Anyways, this is going to be easier, of course. So I'm going to use this, but just know that there's other options too. Okay, when you're measuring your head for a wig, there are 3 measurements that you need to do. So the first measurement is your circumference. You're going to take your measuring tape and go around your head. When you go around the back of your head, it's going to go below your 2 occipital bones, kind of where the base of your hairline would sort of sit. So this is where mine is going to be. It's right below my 2 bones here. I'm going to come over top of my ear on both sides, of course, and I'm going to meet at the top where my hairline is at the top here. So I measure, here's 20, here's 21, I measure 20.5 inches in circumference. So as a 20.5 inch circumference, that is technically a petite size. A petite size for your circumference is around 21 inches. Anything a little bit below that and a little bit above that would be around a petite size. Now, once you get to around 21.5 inches in circumference, that's when you get to be in the average size range. If you find you're measuring around 23 inches in circumference, that's going to be a large. If you find that you're somewhere between petite and average, so maybe something like a 21 inch, then you might need to look for petite average wigs, which there are and we'll talk about later. If you find you're in between average and large, so maybe like a 22 inch circumference, 22.5, then you might find you need to look for average large wigs to help you out a little bit. Okay, but we're gonna get to that in a minute once I go through how to measure your head. So we've done the first measurement, which is our circumference. The next measurement you're going to do is your front to nape. So you're gonna start at 0. You're gonna put it right where your hairline is at the front, and you're just going straight back to that same spot just below your occipital bone, kind of where your hairline would be. So for me, I measure about 11.5 inches from front to nape. So for me, 11.5 inches front to nape is considered a petite size. Anything 13.25 inches or below would be petite. Anything that's around 14.25 inches from front to nape would be considered about average. And anything around 15.5 inches front to nape would be considered a large. All right, the third measurement you're going to do is ear to ear. So again, you're gonna take your measuring tape. You're gonna sit it just above your ear crease here. Now, often people just kind of want to go right over top of their head and to their other ear crease. That's not going to give you the most accurate measurement. So I get about 10 and a half, almost 11 inches when I do that. What you're actually going to want to do is you're going to want to go over the crown of your head, which is going to be the furthest point back that your head goes. So that's around, give or take, 7 inches back. So what I like to do is go 7 inches. I go backwards 7 inches, put my finger there. And when I go over top of my head, I'm gonna go over top of that 7-inch spot and to the other side where my ear crease is. So that lands me about 11 and a half inches from ear to ear. So that would be considered a petite size as well. Anything around 13 inches or under is gonna be petite. Anything around 13 and a half inches from ear to ear is gonna be average. And anything around 14 inches ear to ear is gonna be a large. Okay, now that we've figured out how to measure our head, let's talk about what these measurements mean and how to decide what you're gonna be, because we have 3 measurements here. And for me, it's easy because all 3 of my measurements are petite. However, that might not be the case for you. You might find that you have an average circumference, a petite ear to ear, and a petite front to nape. So if you have something like that where not all 3 measurements fall under the same category, typically speaking, you're going to want to go towards the measurement that's your biggest. So in my example just there, the circumference was the biggest measurement because the ear to ear was petite and the front to nape was petite. So you're going to want to likely go towards an average sized cap. Now, the reason you wouldn't want to necessarily go petite is because even though it's going to fit you likely front to nape and ear to ear, your wig is going to feel way too tight on you and you're going to feel like your brains are going to be exploding out of your head, which is not ideal, of course. Having a wig that's a little bit too big in certain areas is going to be much better than having a wig that is far too small, because that wig that is far too small is either going to feel way too tight around your circumference and give you a giant headache, or it's not going to fit your whole head and it's going to slide back a lot. You're going to want something that's going to feel more comfortable than that. Okay, now that we've learned how to take our measurement and we have a rough idea of where we're going to be sitting within the wig size guide, I'm going to tell you that those measurements are still going to be confusing. And the reason they're still going to be confusing for you is because every brand out there fits a little bit differently than others. So we sell at Chiquel a ton of average sized wigs. However, there are some brands that fit a little bit bigger than average generally. There are some brands that fit a little smaller than average generally. And then there's some brands that fit pretty true to average generally. So even though you might know that, hey, I am a petite size, or hey, I am an average size, or hey, I am a large size, it might mean nothing because of the certain brand you're going for. It just might fit differently than what you're used to. So with all of that being said, I'm gonna let you in on some quick little secrets about certain brands and how they might fit. Now, just as a disclaimer here, I want to make sure you know that what I'm about to share with you is based on my personal experience and based on some other opinions that I've read about before. This is not coming from the brands themselves. This is just based on what I have seen or felt when I put a certain brand of wig on my head. And also, as another disclaimer, I want you to know that my experience with these brands does not necessarily hold true to every single wig within that brand. It's just more of a generalization. So with all of these disclaimers here, I'm gonna start off with telling you a couple brands that might fit more average to average large. So if you're an average to average large, so a little bit bigger than average, I would suggest you look into brands like Raquel Welch or Bellatress. I find that their open wefted caps tend to fit a little bit on the bigger side. Now again, this doesn't hold true to every single wig by this brand, but generally, overall, they're gonna fit average to a little bit bigger than average. If you are an average sized wig wearer, then I would suggest you look into a brand like Jon Renau or Gabor. In my experience, I have found those two brands to fit pretty true to average across the board. If you are a petite to petite average size wig wearer, I would suggest you look into a brand like Ellen Villa. The majority of Ellen Villa's wigs are going to fit a little bit smaller than average. Another brand you could look into is Noriko. I do find, however, that Noriko wigs that I've tried in the past have been smaller in terms of the circumference. However, in the rest of the wig, they've been about an average. So the circumference is going to be generally smaller than average for Noriko wigs. At the end of the day though, finding a wig that's going to fit you is a lot to do with trial and error and a lot of research. Before you pull the trigger and buy that wig, I really suggest you do a lot of research on YouTube, because YouTube is where you get those real life experiences of these wig wearers and where you learn how it's going to fit them and how it works for them. To me, that is going to be your best bet to finding a wig that works for you. So oftentimes, just knowing that a wig is an average size is not enough information, because as I've mentioned, every wig and every brand is going to fit differently. So a Jon Renau wig that's an average size is going to fit differently than an Ellen Villa wig that's an average size. And it's going to fit differently than a Bellatress wig that's an average size. So research, research, research. If you have any questions about sizing and trying to find something that works for you, then let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do to help you out, because I know that this process is just so stinking hard. It's so hard. Just when you think you found that right one, you get it and it just doesn't work. It's kind of the name of the game and it's really frustrating, but I want to try and help you guys as best I can. So if you guys have any questions or comments, or if you want to add a little bit of a tidbit of information that you've experienced among certain brands and sizing, then let us know in the comments below, because as I've said before, this is a community of knowledge. There's so many women out there who have experienced wigs and have gone on their wig journey, and there's so much knowledge out there, and I'd love for it to be shared so that people can just come here to learn things and get that information. I know that I do not know absolutely everything there is to know, so I want your input too. So with all of that being said, I'm going to call it a day and say goodbye. So thank you so much for being here and following along with me. I truly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.